morning, Ms. Kim.
Hey, how are you, Cody?
I'm good. For those watching, I'm Cody Powers. I'm a licensed private investigator here in the state of Arkansas. Miss Kimberly Shelby has asked me to come interview her today. As a private investigator, my job is to ask the tough questions, get down to the truth. And that's what we're trying to do here today. Is that right, Ms. Kim?
Yes, it is.
So, Ms. Kim, before we get into the nitty-gritty, kind of give me an overview. Tell everyone what this is really about.
There's so much. So I was married to Vernon McKay from 1990 until 2014, and we got divorced in 36 days. And then he married another woman, Miss Catherine Powell is her name now. They were married for 13 months, and then he suddenly died. After his death, she was not a participant in probate until I think it was July of 2020. She decided to get an attorney, and ever since then she's been fighting. She's asked the court to possibly consider reworking my divorce decree with Vernon. She wants my house sold. She asked the court to remove me from my home. And Vernon and I had decided to keep that home together indefinitely. After we divorced, we figured out that my name was not on the deed. He certainly had plenty of opportunity. He had 8-9 months to sell it without my permission. He didn't have to have it. He added my name. He was engaged to this woman when he added my name, and I guess the fight has been on ever since. I have hired 2 different attorneys over the course of the last 7.5 years. I had to terminate my last attorney in May, and I was not allowed to terminate him per the court until last week, and I have 10 working days, which end this Friday, to represent myself to defend my home.
So, this is something that's been going over several years.
Yes.
You were married to Mr. Vernon McKay for how long?
Almost 25 years.
25
we
years.
started dating in 1987 when he was 19 years old and I was 21.
Okay. And so from 1987, and you get divorced when?
2014.
2014. How many children do you have together?
We had 4 children. One is deceased, so we have 3 living children.
3 living children. Okay. And you had a home with this with Mr. McKay before he
Yes.
passed. And where's this home located?
It's in Brooklyn on the highway now. It used to be the highway. We was 3.5 acres in 1990, a month before we got married, from his dad, and then we put a mobile home on it, and then after a few years we built the home that's there now. The construction was finished. We moved in 1994.
So moved in 95. You moved in 95, and since then Brooklyn has grown significantly.
Yes, the highway came in and took a chunk out of the back. I still have a little section across the highway too, a small piece.
So would it be fair to say that the value of the property has grown significantly since when you purchased it?
Yeah, we paid his dad $15,000 for it, and I don't know how much it's worth now. Zillow says that my house is worth, as residential, $300,000.
So did you say 15,000?
15,000
So from 15,000 to somewhere in the ballpark of 300,000
for residential. Yeah.
So when you divorced Mr. McKay, or I guess it would be more accurate to say he initiated the divorce proceedings. Is that correct?
No, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I initiated.
Was there like an agreement that you would do that?
We agreed in the divorce decree. We didn't put any timelines or stipulations on when to sell the property because we wanted the kids to finish growing up there. If the grandkids wanted to come there, they could. We just had no timeline of selling it. And then, we found out 6 or 7 months later that my name wasn't even on the deed. When we started talking to realtors to see if we could sell a portion of it, they wouldn't even talk to me, only him, because he was the deed holder.
Okay.
So that's how we discovered that.
So when the property was conveyed by deed to, it was supposed to be initially both of you, but it was actually deeded only to him.
I still have that original deed.
have the original deed. Okay. And as a wife, even if your name is not on the deed, do certain rights attach? Does the law here in Arkansas give you certain rights as a spouse
Yes.
to property that your spouse may own?
Fortunately or unfortunately, yes. It's called, for a woman, Dower's rights. I didn't even know what they were. When the highway came through, I actually had to sign a document releasing my Dower's rights for the highway to take that property. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I was young. I had no clue. It's the only property I've ever owned. I've since found out, since he passed away, when he passed away, there were 7 states in the United States that still had dower and courtesy laws. Currently, as of today, there are 3 states. They've been abolished as outdated, antiquated, useless, and they can create havoc that doesn't need to be there.
So Arkansas is one of those few states that
Yes.
still recognize dower rights,
Yep.
courtesy rights. So the original idea behind these dower rights, can you explain that?
The original idea was back in the 1800s, women could not own property. So in order to ensure if the husband died first, which they usually did, that the widow and her children would have a home until they passed away, they implemented dower's rights. And so the property couldn't be sold. Most properties were farm ground. She could get a dowry or an amount of money off of the crops. It was just to take care of the woman and her family
So
until
originally,
she passed away. It was a good thing originally.
it was a good thing. It was meant to protect women and children in the event the husband or the father, in the case the children died, so they would have an income. They would have a way to support themselves. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we still have these laws on the books today.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your case, you've lived in this house since 1995, and to this day,
Been on the property since 1990.
on the property since 1990. Okay, so you've raised a family on this property. You've raised 3 kids on this property. You have lots of memories on this property. And did you yourself contribute to paying for this property?
I have all of our tax returns, or I think I have 90% of them. Generally, I made more money than him, and you can hear it in the one recording that's on YouTube. He's asking me if I've caught up the first and second mortgage so that he can take out a loan after our divorce. It was mostly my responsibility to pay for everything, but we kept that quiet because I didn't want to make him look bad, and he didn't want to look bad, and he was trying. He worked a lot of jobs, but he just didn't make a lot of income.
Exactly. So, now that you are divorced, there was an agreement just for you and the children to remain on the property. He moved off, correct?
Yes.
And he remarried.
Yes, and the divorce decree said pay half, but he didn't pay anything. He couldn't afford it.
I'll say, you're talking about the,
Expenses to maintain the home.
is there still a mortgage on the property?
I've paid off the second mortgage. I've got it completely paid off, I believe, 2 years ago, and I'm still paying on the first mortgage. Yes.
So even after he's been gone, you continue to pay
I've paid it
for
all.
the property.
Taxes, insurance, upkeep.
Interesting. All this time, money, these memories, not just money, but you've built memories here.
Memories with hundreds of kids. We used to have teen nights every Friday night, and there was 50 to 75 kids in our yard playing football, bonfires, music, volleyball, baseball, croquet. We had stuff set up all over the yard.
And in your divorce decree, it was pretty much agreed that you would sell the property eventually, but just in the indefinite future, and that y'all would split the proceeds after the debts were paid.
Yeah, we had debts, but yeah.
So now, after the divorce, after you were divorced, he remarried to Miss Catherine Powell. Is that correct? Or
That's her current name.
Okay.
That's her current name.
And because he remarried, those dower rights no longer attached to you, but
Correct.
to her.
Correct.
And how long were they married?
13 months. 1 year and 1 month.
1 year and 1 month. And then he passed away. Okay, and before we talk about his passing away, so he passed away, and now the law here in Arkansas, because of these dower rights, entitle her to a certain percentage of the property.
Or the value of it.
The value
yes.
of it. What is that? Can you tell us that?
She would be entitled to 1/6. She would get a third of his half of the property. Either in land, money, whatever.
And you were showing me before the show a letter from a trial court administrator. Can I see that letter?
Which one?
Let me see about
This one, or there's that's the judge's decree, and this is the one from last week.
Let me see this. It's interesting. As I was reading this, this is a letter from the office of Pamela Honeycutt, circuit judge here in the Second Judicial Circuit here in Arkansas. It's a letter to the attorneys in this case, so the attorneys at the time, which were, it looks like Todd Watson, Dustin Jones, and Anika Ortiz Reed. Am I saying that right? It says the court agrees that the dower payouts under the facts of this case does not appear to be equitable. I think just about anyone watching this would agree with that. The dower laws were created during a time when most women were homemakers without means to support themselves and their children upon death of their husbands. Further, the language in the statute seemed to have anticipated that the widow would have been left with children to support. In this case, the dower claim is being made by a widow who was only married to the decedent 13 months, and they had no children together. It will result in the ex-wife of many years, that's you, and with 3 children, with the decedent having to sell or lease the marital home on which she has allegedly paid approximately $200,000 of the mortgage owed.
At the time of that letter.
At the time of this letter.
Mm-hmm.
And she has also paid maintenance and taxes. Of course, the judge here really kind of hits the nail on the head. Well, the dower rights attached, but she doesn't really feel that's equitable. That's not fair. And she says, I thought this was interesting, as much as the court believes the dower claim to be outdated and unfair in facts of this case, statutory rights may not be diminished on equitable grounds. In other words, you're just out of luck.
There's only one way, and that's if you were to murder your spouse, you get nothing. Nobody does. But the interesting thing is that the kids, Alicia, the oldest one, is the administrator, they sold their half of the property to me in 2019 when the widow was not wanting to be a part of the probate, and those deeds and that sale has never been brought to Judge Honeycutt's attention until this past week, when I brought them to the attention of the court.
Okay, can you explain now? Can you explain the whole probate process just as simply as possible for the listeners, kind of as you've experienced it? What has happened after Mr. McKay died? It's not as simple as just the house is yours and that's it. There's certain legalities that have to take place. Is that correct?
Right.
Can you tell me about that?
Probate is to follow the wishes of the deceased, whether he had a will or not. If there are prenuptial agreements, they're supposed to be brought forth. And probate is basically to say, okay, so in Vernon's case, he did not have a will, but of course by the phone recordings, he said he had a prenuptial agreement, but the court's not heard that. So you take all of his debts and all of his assets, and the court is just to make sure that all of the creditors are paid. And after that, the assets can just be distributed to, heirs or whoever.
So in Arkansas, when someone dies, if they have a will, that trumps everything.
It doesn't trump prenuptial agreements.
It doesn't trump prenuptial agreements. Prenuptial agreement is in a way, and this is me speaking as a layman, but it's kind of a will. It's an agreement, an expression of one's what they want.
These are mine, these are yours.
Exactly.
We're not going to take from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, but when someone dies in Arkansas without a will, what is that called? Is it
Intestate.
intestate?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a default. The law provides a default in those events.
Yes.
This person gets this much, children get this much. If you know, if they are not in the picture, if they don't exist, you know, if they don't have children, then this person or a brother or a sister. Next of kin. There's all these different scenarios the law lays out.
It's laid out in a chain. Yes. If this doesn't exist, you move to this one. So.
And so that's pretty much what's happening here. Now you kept mentioning that there may have been a prenuptial agreement. Who did he have a prenuptial agreement with? You or
no, with Catherine.
With
He
Catherine.
told me that in a phone call that was recorded. I've never seen the prenuptials. He said he had already signed hers and he was getting his done that day in June of 2015 before they married.
I see.
But I never saw him.
But you never saw him. So a will or prenuptial agreement is only as good as, you know, as long as it's there.
Yeah.
It's been published. It's been brought to light to the court.
I did find some court cases where verbal prenuptial agreements could be admissible in court, so I'm hoping that the phone call will prove that his wishes, and that he went into the marriage believing Catherine didn't want the home that we shared together.
And you said for the first several months, or for some time, several years,
yes,
that Miss Catherine did not show much interest.
In 17, 18, 19, or until July 20th. She did sign a waiver in 2018 when his mom's property was sold, allowing Alicia to just do whatever paperwork needed to be done to get that sale done. And that property was tied to his siblings. It was a big piece of property that, you know, they just needed to close that out quickly.
I see. So, not much interest. What changed? What happened?
I had to report to my attorney how much I had paid on the mortgage. I worked with the IRS. Oh gosh, me and Alicia and I both made phone calls. I bet we spent 40 to 60 hours with the IRS. We finally got penalties and interest removed from debts that he owed them. Currently, the remaining IRS debt is around $10,000 or $11,000 that he owed on a business that failed. I've paid the mortgages down, and the one mortgage I paid off, and so I don't know why she appeared. We were going to sell the property next door. There's 3 properties involved that he was attached to. I disagreed with the sale price, and then she disagreed with the sale price, but then she also in 2020 disagreed with me being a creditor because he owed me child support and half of the mortgages. And so I filed that. The kids told me, yes, Mom, you paid it, file it. Dad owed it to you. So I filed it, and she wanted that removed as well. But so far, that hasn't been removed.
Did the court agree with you on that, or have they not made a ruling?
They just ignored her. They didn't make a ruling on it.
I mean, as far as you being a creditor.
Yes, I did that within the first 6 months. It was approved by the court, and there was no contesting it until 2020, 3.5 years later.
So, has the court ruled on the fact whether or not it will grant you creditor status since it's been contested?
That she can't contest it. She had 6 months to contest it.
I see. Okay. So there's some property here at stake. It has significant value here in Northeast Arkansas. It's located in Brooklyn. Where's it located? As far as is it deep in the residential area, or is it kind of?
No, it's on the highway beside Sonic.
So it's right where the residential area meets the business area.
Yeah, there's 600 linear feet of highway frontage on the east side.
So
another 125, 150 feet on the west side of the highway.
Oh, wow. So here in Northeast Arkansas, those who live here know that Brooklyn is a very thriving community. It's growing significantly over the past decade. So this property will probably, would you agree with this statement that it will probably only increase in value?
Of course.
Because of where it's situated. So it's not like in the back 40, so to speak, out in the woods on the edge of town. It's right smack in the middle of town on the highway.
The only problem is that my property, as far as highway frontage, I have the bulk of the main gas line that runs through the state, dividing it right down the middle, like bisecting it in an angle. So there is a main gas line. That's why no one's really approached me to purchase it, because they'll have to build around that gas line.
Okay, so there may be a
It won't
problem.
be as valuable as
Won't be
the
as
other
valuable,
properties, but it's still very valuable.
Still very
supposedly.
Yes. Okay. So now, speaking of Miss Catherine, before this interview, we kind of talked a little here, a little there about Miss Catherine's past. What do you know about Miss Catherine?
She introduced herself to us. Vernon had us all to come meet up at his sister's and his mom's old restaurant. I think it's called Gina's Place now. He wanted us to all meet her, and he wanted to talk to Jenna about dating this young man. So Catherine introduced herself. She said she had 3 boys, and they had 2 different fathers that had passed away young, but not to worry, Vernon was fine. I don't have any proof of that other than the kids, participating in that conversation. I don't think Alicia was there. I think she was already married by then. But I had that contact with her. I've had contact with her when she came to pick up Jenna once, and I've had contact with her when she came to Alicia's wedding. And that's about all I know about her.
Very little contact. So she was married previously twice.
I
Or at least had 2.
I don't know. I know the second, the father to the 2 youngest boys, she did marry at one point and divorced him, and he adopted the oldest one. So.
Let's say, are these gentlemen? Are they still? Have you communicated with them? Are they still?
They're not alive.
They're not alive. Okay. What can you? Have you done any research into Miss Catherine's family? As far as like these gentlemen that she had relationships with, you said they're no longer alive.
Nobody knows the name of the first man,
Yes.
and I think it's sealed with adoption papers, so I don't know. I did do some research, and there's nothing wrong with that. About the second gentleman, I did some FOIA requests, and his death was odd.
Where was you said? But you don't know the first man's name, but you.
The second man died, I believe, in his home at Bono.
So
He was an ASU student. He had gone back to school to make a better life for himself.
Okay, this is the second man.
The second
What
man.
was his name?
Jesse Jeremiah Osmond.
Osmond?
Osmond, O-Z-B-U-N, I think.
And he lived in Bono,
As far as I know.
which is also in Craighead County, Arkansas. But before we go talk about Mr. Osmond, you mentioned the first gentleman whose name you don't know, but you do know he's deceased.
That's what she told us.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
But we don't have any.
And I asked Jeremiah's sister, and she said yes, that he had died. She also doesn't know his name.
Jeremiah's, who's Jeremiah?
Jesse Jeremiah.
Oh,
Osmond,
Jesse Jeremiah, the second one.
Yeah,
So,
his sister didn't know the guy's name either.
so the second husband's sister knew that the first, I say husband, forgive me, the second individual with whom she had a relationship, his sister said that the first gentleman was deceased.
Yeah.
Don't know why, don't know where, but that
We
he's
don't know anything about him.
okay. And Mr. Osmond, he died in his home in Bono. When was that?
February 14th, I think 2011.
2011.
I think. I wasn't prepared for that question.
What?
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
And he was divorced from her at that point. And when we met her at Gina's place, she told us that her and the boys had gone to see him and either take or pick up Valentine's candy. I don't remember, and that they found him deceased in the recliner. That is not what the police report and the coroner's report says. So that was why, naturally, that's going to make me question things.
I see. So, Miss Catherine and Mr. Osmond were split up. They were divorced. So they were actually married at one time. He lived in Bono. They met up. the same day that he died?
That's what she told us, but that's not what the coroners and the police report and the 911 call say.
What was the original reason given by Miss Catherine for his
She said he had overdosed on drugs, as far as they knew. Yeah.
What did the coroners and police report say?
The coroner's report said it appeared to be a drug overdose. He wasn't autopsied. They sent labs to the state crime lab. I don't know how to interpret those labs. They didn't do an autopsy though. And then the police report said the coroner had already been there when he arrived. 911 wasn't called for at least 20 or 30 minutes according to the 911 log. I'm not sure why the coroner was there. It's really confusing why the coroner was called first and he was there. And it said that he was found in bed, deceased.
He was found in bed deceased.
By aunt or grandma. I don't know.
911 was called or it wasn't called?
They were called, but only after the coroner had been there 20, 30 minutes.
So the coroner was contacted first for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Which, to your average person, might seem kind of odd.
It might be normal, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So, a drug overdose, were there results that you read?
I read the labs, but none of them were flagged as high. They're available for the public. They can FOIA them from the coroner.
Do you have those with you today?
I don't have them with me. I wasn't prepared to bring those.
Were there any certain drugs in the system?
It was all his prescription drugs.
It was his prescription drugs. Do you remember what they were?
I think he had hydrocodone, some medicine for asthma. He had the flu or something. So, and he had cough syrup that had the codone in it, or codeine or something. Yeah. So just normal prescriptions.
But and from your layman's perspective, you didn't see anything that.
The labs didn't flag anything. They didn't make any comments, but they may have paperwork that I'm not allowed to see as the public.
I see.
So, I don't know. He gave me, the coroner's office provided me a copy of the lab values, and they seemed normal. But I'm not a lab technician, not a doctor. I don't know. I just know they weren't flagged as high or low. Okay. Some were flagged as barely present.
Barely present.
He was on Zoloft. So.
Interesting. So, now let's turn to Mr. McKay. How did he die?
Well, the emergency room doctor coded it an ICD-10 code, which is a billable code of I-49.9, and that is sudden cardiac arrest with unknown causes or etiology. And so that triggered him to call the coroner's office or have the coroner's office called, because when someone enters an emergency room receiving CPR and they die within 24 hours, there has to be an investigation into the death.
So he died because his heart stopped?
Yes.
But they don't know why?
No.
They don't know why?
There was no chemical, physical, or electrical reasons for it to die.
And
or stop. Yeah.
Here in Arkansas, here in the South, a lot of people die because of heart disease. So it's rather commonplace.
Yeah.
But generally, what are the causes of those heart issues? I mean, just from your perspective.
High cholesterol, diabetes, overweight, which causes high cholesterol and diabetes, blockages. There can be a chemical reason to stop it if you overdose with medicine, or an electrical charge can stop your heart.
So there's a lot of things that could stop one.
Yeah, and they code them differently. All the different heart attacks are coded differently.
So generally, what you're saying is that medical professionals would say his heart stopped because of this.
Correct.
He was poisoned, or he was shocked, or he had high cholesterol and a blockage, build up in his arteries, stop the blood flow. So that wasn't in this case. It was just his heart stopped. So what did the coroner here in Arkansas, what are the qualifications to be a coroner?
You have to be over 18 and not be a felon.
And not be a felon. Okay, so are coroners medical, are they doctors?
Not usually, no. They don't have to be, they're just an elected official.
So anyone 18 and up, as long as they're elected, they can be coroner.
Yes, and not a felon.
And not a felon. Exactly. So, who is the coroner who was the coroner in this play?
It was Deputy Coroner Jeremy Throsh was in charge.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that in most cases, here, at least in Northeast Arkansas, most coroners are somehow connected to the funeral home business?
Yes, and that's legal. That's fine.
Yeah, they're the ones that deal with.
Yeah, Jeremy was also the funeral director.
Okay.
For Vernon's case.
I'll say. So, what did he rule as far as?
He decided the ER doctor was incorrect, and initially he put myocardial infarction secondary to Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome, and then he changed it to probable myocardial infarction secondary to Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome.
So myocardial infarction
is usually a blockage. Usually.
A blockage. Is that another term for heart attack?
Yes, it's another term for heart attack. It's a different type. No, it's not the same. It's different. It's like having skin cancer versus lung cancer. There's lots of different heart attacks.
Okay. And he said secondary to Wolff-Parkinson's White syndrome. Explain what that is.
So Wolff-Parkinson's White syndrome is something that you are born with. Generally,
it's genetic.
It is genetic. It's usually a genetic mutation. It happens in 3% of the world population. All of those 3% have, at the most, a 1% chance of dying from it. And the ones that have the 1% chance of dying from it, according to the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, have usually experienced racing hearts of over 300 beats per minute. They've had seizures, and they've had a heart cath with an electrophysiogram test. But that's not warranted unless that eval is not warranted unless they have the racing heart. And Vernon's heart rate usually was around 60 or 70 every time he was tested.
Okay. So, am I correct in saying that you have reason to doubt that?
I have reason to doubt it.
The deputy coroner's pronouncement of the cause of death is incorrect.
Yes.
Or is not correct. And explain what. 2 questions. Number 1, how did he come to that conclusion? Or at least, how do you think he came to that conclusion? Number 2, and why do you doubt his conclusion is correct?
Well, we finally got a copy of his coroner's report, which he wrote 3 years after the death. And he stated that a family member had told him that he had been having some heart problems. He didn't include in his coroner's report the Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome, but that he had no other conditions other than heartburn.
So a family member told
him about the Wolff-Parkinson's. He had been going to the ER prior to his death for different things, but
so
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, in all the time you were married, how was his health?
Perfect. He would make jokes. He would do the Bill Cosby thing and say, I can have chocolate cake. I eat chocolate cake and Pepsi. He'd go, heart of a teenager. And he would look at me and go, diabetes. And it's like, and I was halfway in shape, and he joked about it because he had no cholesterol issues. He wasn't even pre-diabetic. He could literally drink a 2 liter of Pepsi and turn around and go ahead, test me. And it'd be like 97. And he would joke about it,
So he was a fairly healthy man.
He was.
And why did he go to when he was going to the ER, he was remarried at this time, correct?
Yeah, he well engaged and remarried.
He
started having chest pains, nausea, dehydration. One time he had a kidney infection. 2 times that he went, he had a kidney infection, and something with the kidneys was clogged. They would do EKGs. One of the EKGs showed 1 delta wave, which is a heartbeat that looks funny on the EKG. I'm not a cardiologist. Another time they saw a delta wave. You can create a delta wave by wiggling your toe, any kind of movement. It's a 10-second EKG.
Oh, go ahead, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no. And he did have stress tests done because he kept complaining of chest pains, dizziness. The stress tests all showed normal. The echocardiogram showed that he was normal. His labs were normal.
So that delta wave, what did that cause? I mean, what did the doctors at the time?
One of the doctors said that it appears he might have Wolff Parkinson's, and he referred him to NEA cardiology. So Vernon became a patient of NEA cardiology in October.
And what came from that? Did you find
Everything up until December 20th, 9 days before he died. He had worn a heart monitor halter from November 14th to December 14th. They saw no delta waves. They did not see any racing heart. His average heart rate was close to 70, 65, 70. No abnormalities. They said, the medical records, and I'm paraphrasing, they told him to go back to his primary care physician because it wasn't his heart. It wasn't his circulatory system.
I say so.
They ran lots of different tests, stress tests, echocardiograms, EKGs, and then the halter for 30 days.
So this Wolff Parkinson's White syndrome was more speculation, is
Yes.
what you're getting at.
And they do that in the ER. They'll throw a label or an ID on there to get you into a specialist faster.
I say so. And doctors, they have to test people, trial and error, right? They have to
Yes.
do their digging to really get a good diagnosis of what's going on. Sometimes it's not immediately apparent what the issue is. Would that be correct to say?
Yes, that's
There
correct.
may be an issue, but they don't know. And so you're saying that saw this delta wave, this abnormal heart rhythm.
I think like 4 in 2 years that they saw 4 heartbeats that were abnormal. We all have, if we were all tested the same way he was, we would have abnormal heartbeats probably.
Interesting. Okay, and you're saying, it's kind of a speculative diagnosis. What would you even call it a diagnosis? Just more of a...
Wolff Parkinson's White syndrome is a diagnosis, but only after, like I said, extensive testing, and they have to have a history of heart racing over 300 beats per minute to even be at a 1% risk of dying from collapse of the cardiac system. And they consider it a curable disease because it's basically an innervation of the heart with an extra nerve bundle. So it would be like plugging your laptop in and then adding another plug-in to your laptop. Sometimes it's going to, glitch, sometimes it's not. So what they do to cure it, they start with medication because they don't want to do a surgery. If that doesn't stop the racing heartbeats, they go in surgically and just clip that nerve bundle, and then it's over. They don't have a problem ever again for the rest of their life with that.
So it's pretty much an electrical issue with the heart.
It is all electrical that can be easily identified.
Okay. And so we have this doctor in some record somewhere at the hospital. It's,
In the ER.
in the ER, which says maybe it's Wolff Parkinson's White syndrome. But then you have the coroner over here that concludes that was it. Or that was probably it. How did the two meet? I mean, how did this coroner conclude that from
He
that?
looked only to the records up until October. He didn't review, if he had reviewed the rest of the medical records through December 20th, he would have seen that NEA cardiology stated everything's normal, your heart's normal. Go back to your doctor and, start over because we can't help you. There's nothing to help you with.
So it sounds like, and this is speculation on my part, it sounds like the coroner just doing his job in a big old county. Craig County's a pretty big county, so I imagine these coroners stay busy every day. So, in a race to do his job, get everything done, someone told him something, he read something, and he just jotted down, case closed, that's it.
Well, yes, because under the laws, the way the investigation should have occurred, his death should have been medically certified. So that means a doctor has to sign off on that death certificate. unless you can come up. So I brought the arrows, whatever it's called, there. Did you have that over there? Maybe not. Is the death certificate over there with you?
No.
No.
Just these letters.
Okay.
Oh, I got, let's see what it's saying.
So in order to properly fill out the death certificate, I don't know where it is, they have to fill out these statements on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
They do everything digitally now. So when you put your primary cause of death, you cannot put unknown etiology because it will trigger the Department of Vital Records computer system to say, oh, hold on, we need a medical certification. But if you put a secondary cause of death that's known, you don't have to get that medical certification for the computer. So it goes ahead and it's been uploaded and the death certificate's printed off and it's done. But if you have to get a medical certifier, the ER doctor was not going to agree with probable myocardial infarction, and he certainly was not going to go against any cardiology group that had been testing him since October, November, December. 3 months of testing said it's not his heart. The ER doc's not going to sign off on it, so the only other option was to send him to the state crime lab for an autopsy, and that was not done.
That wasn't done?
His body was held overnight. According to the medical records, the doctor or the medical staff was told that the coroner did contact the state crime lab, but he did not.
So you have medical records in hand that says that the coroner contacted the state crime lab.
We do.
But you've talked to the coroner's office, you've talked to the state crime lab. Did this conversation actually take place?
No. We have FOIAs. My daughters did FOIAs over and over, and the last FOIA we did was in May of 23, last year, from the state crime lab, and they, again, Cindy Moran emailed us back and said, we have no records, and they keep phone logs too. We have no records on Vernon McKay. If there's anything else we can do, don't hesitate to reach out.
So
they were never contacted, nor do they have any records on him.
What you're saying is that he come to the hospital, to the emergency room. Was that in Jonesboro?
Yes, NEA Baptist.
NEA Baptist Hospital emergency room. His heart stopped for whatever reason. The coroner allegedly contacted according to medical records, contacted the state crime lab because they wanted to know why. There was not enough information to say why his heart stopped.
Correct. And his body was held overnight in the hospital morgue. And I can only assume because they'd called the state crime lab after 4:30 in the afternoon. Often the crime lab, I think it closes at 4:30, so he would have had to wait for a response from the crime lab until the next morning.
I'll see. And so his body was never sent to the crime lab in Little Rock. And as Mr. McKay's longtime spouse, with whom you had 3 children, and you'd only been divorced at this time, how long?
It would have been a little over 2 years.
Just a little over 2 years. So, what are you thinking at this time? What are you thinking when he dies just out of nowhere? And what thoughts are you having?
I wouldn't know. I didn't have any at first because, you sit there and you run through thinking, okay, he's not gonna get to walk Jenna down the aisle. He's not gonna see her graduate. He's not gonna see this. We fought. We got mad. We had some good fights. But we still were doing what was best for the kids.
Exactly.
And I know I loaded a phone call up where he even won some tickets on the radio. Again, before he married Catherine, But after they were engaged, and he said, hey, I won these tickets. Do you and Jenna want these tickets to go to Poplar Bluff and all this? And, we were still working things out. And I was thinking, what in the world? Which he had been getting sick. We had a court date in December before he died, December 3rd or 4th, I don't remember. And he was gray and shuffling his feet. It was weird. He just didn't look right. He said, I don't feel good. And I lost. It was just a minor, it was over Alicia's wedding payments and stuff. The judge ruled with him and said I should have put it in the divorce decree. Whatever, but Vernon came out into the hallway saying, I'm going to make this right. I'm going to make this right. And I'm sorry, Kim, I shouldn't have let it go this far. And witnesses saw that, He didn't hate me. And he told me in the phone calls, both calls I uploaded, he said he still loved me and that he didn't want a divorce.
So you had some phone calls, conversations that were recorded?
We talked almost every day after the divorce. Sometimes we were fighting like cats and dogs, and sometimes they were cordial.
I see. So overall, an amicable connection, but as with any married couple or recently divorced couple, sometimes you're going to fight.
Yeah.
And
it was always over money.
Over money.
Because he couldn't pay his part, and I knew that. I just wanted him to do better.
I see. So, when did you? You're facing some legal action right now. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What type of legal action are you facing?
Well, with the probate, losing my home,
Yes.
mine and Vernon's home, and then the widow last year, after we reached out, she's now filed a defamation lawsuit against me for talking about this.
So, she is taking you to court for defaming her. For
telling my story of what's happened.
Are you saying that she had a hand in Mr. McKay's death?
I've said all along that I don't know what happened to him. I do know that the coroner reported that she was the witness to his death. No one else was. I don't know if that's correct because obviously he made mistakes in his coroner's report and just didn't do the due process. I don't know. I don't understand why someone wouldn't be out saying, oh my gosh, the love of my life died of this excessively rare disease. She went on Facebook the next day and posted that she believed others had a hand in his death. I mean, if he had Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome, why would you say that? Why wouldn't you start advocating for Wolff-Parkinson's and try to help his kids to find out if they have it?
You're saying that the very next day after Ms. McKay died, that she posted on Facebook.
Yeah, I put it in the court records.
That she suspected
others had a hand in his death.
In his death.
And she said that I had poisoned the kids' minds against her. They were adults. Jenna wasn't, but I mean, why would you? You're not their stepmother. You didn't help raise them. I don't know. Lots of bad stuff. But do I know if she had? I don't know what happened to him. I know that he was healthy, and then he wasn't. I don't know what happened to him. And I know that as a citizen, if I just keel over dead for no reason, and the ER says no reason, the law, the Centers for Disease Control, all of those statutes are in place. The Department of Vital Records, they say, look, you're going to have to go get an autopsy most likely. So every citizen has that last final right, and he didn't get it.
I see. So he died under questionable circumstances.
Seems to be.
As time goes by, you're wondering what happened. What happened? What caused this? And naturally, you're going to start thinking about things. You're going to start suspecting things. Mm-hmm. It's speculative, but
one of the things she's suing me for is she states that either I have called or caused others to call her a black widow. But I haven't. There's no record of me calling her a black widow. I don't know what happened, but if you think that, as the wife, why wouldn't you ask for an autopsy?
Exactly. But the very fact that you're asking these questions leads an average person to conclude that she might be a black widow is what she's saying.
That's what she's saying.
Do you think because the possibility she might be defamed that you should not ask these questions?
It makes me nervous to ask them, but my kids deserve answers.
Okay.
They've given up. They're tired of everything because they don't feel like anybody cared about their dad. Over 1,000 people showed up to his funeral. But where were those 1,000 people to say, hey, wait a minute, he didn't get a proper death investigation like every citizen is entitled to. And maybe he did just keel over and die. He was 6'3", 6'4", close to 300 pounds, but he walked all the time, and they noted he was not on any lifetime. He never was on any medication. He was.
How old was he at the time of his death?
48.
48.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm 6'4", 285 pounds.
Yeah.
So.
If you just keel over, they're going to say you're a big man. That's what everyone told me. He was a big man. His heart stopped. He didn't even have blood pressure issues. His blood pressure was normal. So
you feel like that the powers in place that should have dug deeper, done some simple testing to see if there was something more, they failed.
Yes, because they can even take a hair sample and test for Wolff Parkinson's. They just need a hair sample, and they can tell if he had it or not.
They didn't do that. We were talking earlier about the crime lab. What would the crime lab be looking for?
I guess they would do a complete forensic autopsy to see if any kind of chemical stopped his heart. They would have looked structurally to see if blockages were missed. But, and we met with Rick Elliott last year, the chief of police in Jonesboro, and he kept talking about, well, did he have a heart cath? Well, his insurance isn't going to pay for a heart cath for someone who has no blood issues, no high blood pressure, no racing heart. He has no indicators to need a heart cath. That's an invasive procedure. It's not very invasive, but it's still invasive. Insurances aren't going to pay for that when there's no reason for it. And if he can't pay his mortgages, he's not going to pay out of pocket.
So the coroner's office, who's responsible for doing death, trying to ascertain the cause of death, you feel didn't do their job very well?
They were supposed to call the chief of police and the prosecutor. And we have FOIAs that say the prosecutor's office has not responded, but the chief of police, the JPD office, said there was no notification of his death.
No notification. So there was no criminal investigation.
They weren't even allowed to make a determination if there should be one.
So just because he was middle-aged, in his 40s, tall man, slightly heavier than most in the public. Of course, being 6 foot something, being nearly 300 pounds is pretty common.
Yeah, it's not that big. It's not really obese.
No. So that it just nothing here to see here. It's pretty much the attitude of the coroner's office.
I'm just the bitter ex-wife. That I'm greedy. Wanting to keep my own home is greedy. It's preventing the widow from having what she deserves. In the defamation case, she said that I should not, basically you'd have to read it, it's towards the end of the verified complaint, but I should not exist in civilized society.
Wow.
And I don't
Are
know
you trying to, do you harbor any ill will towards Miss Catherine?
I don't know her. I've had 3 or 4 face-to-face interactions with her.
And although she's the other woman after divorce, you've been remarried yourself.
Yes.
Since then.
And when Alicia got married, she stayed off to the side, and I said, hey, you're part of this family. You need to take pictures with everybody. He didn't want me. I can't make a man love me. And he divorced me in 36 days. And then he started saying he regretted it. I don't know what to do with that. I'm not mad at her. He's a grown man. He made his choices.
Well, just sitting here, we're not saying Miss Catherine did anything wrong, but it makes you wonder. It makes an average person wonder, what happened? Was there just some undiagnosed medical issue? You said he'd been healthy his whole life, and then after he got divorced and was remarried, he suddenly became sick. You said his skin tone was off, if I remember correctly. Wasn't walking right. Assuming all these observations are true and accurate, it would lead one like myself to wonder. And then you throw in, again, this is not proof of anything, but the reasonable person still wonders. There was Miss Catherine had previous spouses that are now deceased, and so one.
And that can happen.
That can happen, yes.
You know, people can have multiple spouses that pass away. I have other friends that have had a couple spouses. I mean, I'm getting older. That's part of it. But why is she fighting us, telling the story so much that she's now lodged a defamation suit that wants me removed from civilized society?
No. Just
because we're asking questions that I feel like a reasonable person should ask.
Exactly. So, do you feel like this is an attempt to possibly keep you from asking questions?
Yes. Yeah, and it financially has drained me with legal fees. And I had to terminate my attorney. I don't want to discuss why, but I've spent over $40,000 in attorney's fees since this started, just to save my home and find out what happened to him. And all it's resulted in is that letter you read. So,
I think you would agree with the statement that this is a very convoluted
it's a
case.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there are any attorneys out there that would like to really work a case like this?
I've called. No one in Arkansas. No, they don't want to. They don't want to touch it because it's a mess. It is a mess, and now I have to represent myself, and I have 10 days to represent myself.
In the probate case?
In the probate case.
Not the defamation
Not
case.
the defamation, right.
And what's going to happen in 10 days
if I fail to turn in pretrial paperwork, or Catherine's attorney or the estate attorney fails to turn in pretrial paperwork, according to the judge's clerk, this case, probate will be closed, and the former opinion letter will be held, I guess as the standard, and they'll go ahead and order my home sold, and I'll never get to go before the judge.
So you're not going to really have your day in court?
No.
There's a lot of issues here. It's a lot of issues. Possibly lose your home you've been in for decades now with your family. There's issues that maybe government agents did not do their job as thoroughly as they should have. There's issues with the laws here in Arkansas. We're one of the few states that still hold on to these archaic dowry laws, which obviously when they were established were good and well intended, but maybe they didn't consider the other side of the coin. Maybe we ought to replace it with something.
I think at the very least, if someone dies intestate and anyone has questions about his death, that an autopsy should be mandatory, a forensic autopsy, because this could encourage people. As a living person, he wasn't valuable because we were upside down in our house on the mortgages. We were $40,000 upside down on the mortgages when he died, the day he died. But when you pay stuff down and you look at the values, now is Vernon worth over $1 million dead? I don't know.
Now, you have tried to get certain authorities in the state to even now, even though he's gone, and he's been gone for some time now, you've tried to have his body exhumed and still an autopsy done. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so far,
I have called, my goodness, every agency from the coroner's office, the Arkansas Attorney General's office, the state police, I don't know. So I've just gone up all the different food chains, and nobody can help. It all goes back to the coroner's decision. And I mean, the coroner laws are such that he has diplomatic immunity. Not doing his job, there's no penalty for not doing his job. There's no punishment.
Qualified immunity as long as he makes a good faith effort.
Correct. And he believes he made a good faith effort in this, and he will not change his mind.
I see. So he may be incorrect, but since he's a government agent, as long as he doesn't purposely do wrong, maliciously,
Right.
he's protected.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here. A lot of things, questions that need to be answered. Will they ever be answered? We don't know. There's a lot of issues regarding state government and local government here in Arkansas that could probably need to be looked at much more closely. Frankly, I think most people would agree the coroner's office is probably the least focused on.
Yeah, nobody wants
office.
to run for coroner.
Exactly.
Against him, so.
There's no debates for who's running for coroner.
Correct, yeah.
Sheriff's office, perhaps, county judge, county treasurer, but coroner's office here, at least northeast Arkansas, if you're one of the local funeral home owners, you're kind of the shoe-in. So not a whole lot of, and there's no appeal process.
No, not for the coroner's office. There's nobody. I've talked to senators, representatives. I'm telling you, I've called more than once. Some of the agencies are sick of hearing from me. I've called Vital Records. I mean, it was done incorrectly.
Yes. I've read some law books, and here in Arkansas there used to be coroner's inquest, which
That's no longer either.
that's not a real thing.
Ironically, Representative or Senator Shelby was his last name, got rid of that.
Oh, it is ironic.
I believe that was him that did that several decades ago.
Of course, for those who don't know, a coroner's inquest is pretty much a jury that would come out, you'd lay out the evidence, and they would make a decision on what happened. So, pretty much if this was suspicious or not, if it needed further investigation or not. In this day and time, we have grand juries, but they're not available to the public. Am I correct?
Correct. I guess I haven't been able to find a way to get them available.
Only a judge or a prosecutor can call forth the grand jury. So no one really wants to look at this case. It's old news.
It's old news, and honestly, I'm the last resident on the highway in Brooklyn, and it would be better if I was gone for the economy of Brooklyn, is what I've been told. I've even been told that it's a waste for me to live on that property. Why would you want to live here? I mean, it's my home. It's the grandkids, they know that home. You know, hey Granny, we're gonna come stay with you. Well, you might not. We'll have to move your swing set, and we actually have their dad's swing set and fort at our house. So there's tons of memories there. I mean, it's my property. I've lived there, I've paid for it. Why can't I do with it what I want, when I want?
Exactly.
That should be an American right.
Yes. I would agree with you on that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Again, kind of told your story. We talked about some shortcomings in our state laws. We've talked about your deceased ex-husband, the issues with your property. Is there anything else you would like the general public to know?
We need to change the laws on when you want to fire your attorney. If you're stuck in a court case and you terminate your attorney, your termination doesn't matter. You have to wait on the judge to agree with you.
So
That's not, and I understand part of the premise behind it is you don't want criminals just saying you're fired, and then claiming, oh, I didn't have adequate representation. But in a civil case, this is completely different than a criminal case. And because the judge waited 39 days to release him And I started asking him in May. He didn't file to be released until June. And I've had no time to find another attorney because in Arkansas, if you have an attorney of record, no other attorney is allowed to give you legal advice or help you.
So you couldn't really talk to anyone while you still had
No,
an attorney.
I just have
On
to
the
do it
case.
myself. And now I have 10 days. And I have to do it myself. And I've been looking, Joe's been at home helping and researching and looking and
Joe's
writing motions. My
your
husband, yeah. He's been helping a lot so that I can, I guess, become my own lawyer suddenly. And no, I don't ever want to go to law school, nor do I ever want to be a part of the legal system when this is over.
So you said you had to represent yourself pro se. That means you were doing it yourself without an attorney.
Yep.
Well, that is a difficult task to have. Well, a very intriguing situation here, to say the least. Very, I know, just listening to the story, I have lots of questions. And of course, one of these questions we may never be able to answer. We may never be able to answer. And if you can't get those answers, you at least want things to change to protect
others. I don't want anyone to go through this again. This has been, I've had grandbabies that were miscarried through this. I fell and broke my neck. I mean, we've lived a life for the last nearly 8 years, but we can't move forward, if that makes any sense, because we're all stuck in probate at the mercy of this woman who was in our lives 13 months. She's now been in our lives more than she was ever in Vernon's life. And he married her thinking she wouldn't cause any problems, that she didn't want anything to do with anything attached to me and the kids. So he married her under false pretenses. And that's a shame. I hate that for him. I even, I can show it in the court, but I have a text message from someone who said now that Vernon's dead, he can't protect you anymore.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, because he didn't let people talk bad about me, he protected me and the kids. We fought, but he still protected us.
Well, you do have a battle ahead of you. It's going to be difficult, and you just want answers.
I do.
Answers. You want things to change, and I think it's important to stress the fact that you're not saying this new spouse had done anything wrong.
No, I don't know what happened to him. Nobody does.
You just want answers, though, and you knew a healthy man suddenly got sick and died, and you want answers.
Yes. Whatever they are. If he died of natural causes, great. Then the kids know what to watch for genetically.
Yes.
You know.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to?
Just thank you for interviewing me, and if anyone has questions, they can send us a comment or question at letvernonspeak@gmail.com. We have our YouTube channel. We have a website, Let Vernon Speak, and that's at letvernonspeak.com.
What about the YouTube channel? What's that?
We're going to upload this video. I had to develop the YouTube channel to present the phone calls in court records. You have to present a public link that is safe without viruses. So that's why I put it on YouTube.
I'll say. So if they're interested in finding out more, they can email you. They can look up this website, this YouTube channel, and I'm certain they can reach out to you as well. Have you taken any efforts to speak with your state representatives, senators about this issue?
Nobody can help.
No one seems.
They don't seem interested. The Dower laws were challenged a few years ago by Bob Ballinger.
Senator Ballinger?
Yes, they don't. Nobody was interested. They don't want to change the Dower laws. The representatives, senators, they don't want to change them.
Let's see. Well, maybe things will change after this. You never know. Ms. Kim, thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you.